Here's a look at Macbeth Act III. This act opens with Banquo, outside of the royal palace in Forres, thinking about the coronation of Macbeth and wondering to himself, if the first witch's prophecy came true, then perhaps the second prophecy might also come true, and Fleance might someday inherit the crown. At this point, King and Queen Macbeth enter the scene, and Lady Macbeth invites Banquo to a feast that they are having that evening. Banquo says he would be delighted to attend, and mentions that he will be going horseback riding later that afternoon. Macbeth reminds Banquo that they should meet to discuss the problem of Malcolm and Donalbain, who are still on the run, and who may have plans against the crown. Banquo departs, and Macbeth dismisses the court. He summons a servant and orders him to fetch 2 men that have been waiting for Macbeth. Now alone, Macbeth has time to reflect on the prophecies of the witches, and realizes that Banquo and Fleance might present an actual true threat to his throne. Next, the 2 men that Macbeth has been waiting for arrive, and he promises them a handsome sum of money if they kill Banquo and Fleance. Next, we see Lady Macbeth enter the scene. Lady Macbeth is very concerned about Macbeth's behavior, and she questions him, saying, "Now that we are king and queen, can't you just be happy?" But Macbeth informs her that there are too many threats to the crown, starting with that crown-stealing wannabe, Banquo. He has plans to get rid of him. The scene now shifts. It is nighttime, and we see 3 assassins hired by Macbeth lying in wait for Banquo and Fleance to walk by. When the time is right, they spring the ambush. Banquo yells to Fleance to run away and avenge him. The 3 murderers quickly kill Banquo, but Fleance manages to get away. One of the murderers decides that they should return to Macbeth and inform him of what has happened. The next scene takes place in Macbeth's castle, where Macbeth is holding a fancy banquet for all of the Scottish court. Lady Macbeth and Macbeth enter when an assassin appears at the kitchen doorway. Macbeth goes over to speak with him, and the assassin lets him know that Banquo has been killed, but Fleance got away. This understandably upsets Macbeth. Knowing that he has guests, Macbeth turns to greet them when he sees the ghost of Banquo sitting in his chair. This freaks Macbeth out, and he begins yelling at the ghost of Banquo, much to the concern of the other guests who are watching this scene. Lady Macbeth jumps in to defend her husband, saying, "Oh, he's always seen visions and talked to himself since he was a child. It's perfectly normal behavior." Lady Macbeth pulls her husband aside and says, "What are you doing?" To which he replies, "I saw a ghost." And she chastises him, saying, "You need to pull it together. Everybody is watching us." Macbeth is about to return and apologize to his guests when the ghost of Banquo, who only Macbeth can see, appears again, causing Macbeth to freak out even more. Lady Macbeth takes matters into her own hands, dismisses the court on the premise that Macbeth is unwell. Macbeth is growing increasingly concerned that everybody is trying to take his throne. For instance, did you notice that Macduff was not there that evening? He decides he's going to go back to see the witches the next day to see how he can secure his throne. Lady Macbeth is worried about him and suggests that he just needs to go to bed and get some rest. Next, we find ourselves on the Scottish moors, where the 3 witches are being scolded by Hecate, the goddess of magic. She is angry at them that they have played tricks on Macbeth without consulting her, and decides that she is going to take over the entire operation herself. The final scene of this act sees Lennox walking with another nobleman, and Lennox is talking about how Fleance is now being blamed for the death of Banquo. But both the nobleman and Lennox agree Macbeth is probably the real killer of both Duncan and Banquo. Next, they discuss how Macduff has gone to England to search for Malcolm, and that together they hope to convince the King of England, King Edward, to help them regain the Scottish throne. Macbeth, who has learned of this, is preparing for war. Both Lennox and the nobleman agree, that it would be best for Scotland to get rid of Macbeth.